What's going on, everybody? Happy Eurovision week.
Yeah.
It feels really nice to say that. It obviously always a long time coming, but it's here.
It's finally here.
We're going to get some results.
Yes.
And we're going to talk a little bit about those potential results because we're taking a quick look at the odds, how they stand right now on the Monday before semifinal 1, semifinal 2, and of course the final. Let's begin with the semifinal 1 qualifiers. Jess, would you like to walk us through this list? First and foremost, before we actually get started, shout out to eurovisionworld.com, who always keep everything organized, and they're a really useful resource for pretty much anyone that follows Eurovision related things. So now let's talk about who is qualifying in semifinal 1 according to the odds.
Yes, so starting with the country number 1, we have Ukraine, and then Greece, Norway, Netherlands, Armenia, Portugal, Albania, Moldova, Latvia, and Switzerland.
Okay, which would leave the non-qualifiers as it stands in the odds with Austria, Lithuania, Iceland, Croatia, Denmark, Slovenia, and Bulgaria in that order, in descending order. What do you think about this? How accurate would you say overall is this picture?
I mean, I think with odds, you can never really trust them 100% because there are many factors that can alter the odds, some for the better, some for the worse. And for me, ultimately, it comes down to the performance on the night.
Of course.
How the act is singing, how their staging is, and how Europe and Australia is responding to what they are hearing and seeing on stage. So I would always take odds with a pinch of salt. And so looking at this now, obviously there are some countries that I agree with and some that I disagree with. That's pretty much where I stand at the moment.
I think, like, if we're talking from a general point of view, I think this could come very close to the result that we see, kind of ignoring the rank as well, because really we're just thinking about qualifiers here, but like certainly Ukraine, certainly Greece, certainly Norway, and then, everything in between. But let's talk about countries that we see here qualifying that you may have some concerns about. What would be one of them?
I guess from that list, it would probably be Switzerland.
Okay.
Nothing against the song or the performer, but I feel like the song and his staging is not engaging enough to draw you in and to make you remember it. It seems a bit, essentially he's just standing there singing with a whole bunch of lights around him. For me, it's not very memorable. And I think he's going to struggle to stand out amongst this lineup.
I would have to agree with Switzerland because apart from, being a really solid vocal performance, I would say, there just doesn't seem to be enough to really grab the audience. What they've gone for, it doesn't seem to really fit the warmth of the song, I would say. And it is quite bare. It's not as if there's nothing there, but what they've brought in doesn't seem to really, motivate me to want to get invested into the story. So I would say that perhaps Switzerland could be in a bit of hot water, but it also wouldn't surprise me if it just made it through, because I still do think that kind of song does have an audience, and maybe it would be just enough.
I mean, I could see the juries kind of voting for this song more than I could the televote. So potentially that could just put them in the top 10.
Any others that you see here that you're a bit concerned about?
Do you know what? Pretty much every other country in that list I actually think is going to qualify. Okay. The only one is Switzerland that I'm on the fence with.
All right. There's a few here that I actually have some thoughts about, and maybe it's just my habit for having some concerns and doubts, because about many songs that I like, and one that's in there that might surprise some people is actually the Netherlands.
Oh.
Personally, I love this song. I think Estine is a fantastic performer, but the sense that I have, and the sense that I have, talking with other people who have seen this performance, is that it just feels a bit too bare. And some people have made comparisons to other songs in the past where it's strong, but the performance is lacking. How do you feel about that?
I mean, obviously after watching Estine's rehearsals, the staging, yes, it does come across as a bit bare and a bit kind of empty, but I feel like her as a performer and the song will be strong enough to get them through to the final. Maybe they won't get the best result they could have done had they had a different staging perhaps, but I do think what the package they have is enough to get them in the top 10 in the semi.
I certainly hope so. I would be very happy to eat my words if that were the case. Another one that I would say I'm much more concerned about would actually be Moldova. And it's been interesting because a lot of people, they think of Zdobzhidu a band that I clearly cannot say their name. But you know, they have Eurovision success in the past. They've been in the top 10, I think, on both occasions, or like really close on the second time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've had a couple of near misses.
Yeah, but you know, like pretty solid record.
Yeah, of course.
And I think a lot of people, for that reason, were assuming that it was going to be the same thing. But their rehearsal, when we watched it, I felt was quite messy and you know, like colors all over the place, not as energetic as it really could be, and perhaps one of the entries that is maybe losing a bit of a magic because of the non-functioning kinetic sun. How do you feel about Moldova?
Yeah, I wasn't wowed by the staging. It did fall a bit flat for me. However, Shidub, however you say their name, they do have, in my opinion, a great kind of stage presence. And them as individuals, and the staging is, yes, it's chaotic, but it's also very out there, very fun. And then when you mix that with this high tempo kind of traditional music, I think, you know, this is the kind of fun and happy that people are looking for in these, you know, times that we're living through. And I feel like that could resonate, not so much with juries, but with televoters. I could see them just loving the craziness of it all and thinking, okay, I want this in the final.
Well, so that was one of the things that we talked about when reviewing the rehearsals, because I could see that as well. I do think that the televote support would have to be very big, because I don't think the juries are really going to eat this up. This could end up quite low, and in fact possibly, you know, at the bottom with the juries, and from what I can see. But we'll have to see. And before we move on to semifinal 2, let's talk about these supposed non-qualifiers according to the odds. So once again, Austria, Lithuania, Iceland, Croatia, Denmark, Slovenia, and Bulgaria. Which of those do you think has the best chance of qualifying if this was wrong? Yeah.
I would say the one I think will qualify from that list is Lithuania.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And why is that?
Because we don't have a song like this in this kind of style in this year's Eurovision. It's, you know, as you mentioned, it's a very 70s sound, an old school type of sound, and Monica sells it perfectly on stage. She's got so much charisma, and she just is almost as like she's straight from the 70s and plonked on like the Eurovision stage. And I think the whole mood and the vibe of the song, with her kind of chassaying around the stage in her glitter dress, is gonna like speak to people.
I certainly hope so, because this is one of my favorite entries from Lithuania, and everything that you said is totally correct. Like, performance really on point. She's quite magnetic with herself. I guess the thing that I've always been thinking about is, you know, because this song is quite out of step for Eurovision, I have to wonder, like, who is going to be that motivated to vote for it. You know, again, it could be one of those things where the jury really pushes it through. But yeah, I love Monica so much. I think the fans have also really warmed up to her, so I think that would be a very welcome surprise. For me, I'm kind of in between Iceland and Croatia, perhaps. Fair enough. Not everybody is on board with...
But Iceland would have been my second choice.
Okay, there you go. And yeah, between the two, I would say I feel stronger about Iceland than Croatia, but really it's for the same reasons for the two of them. It's that, you know, they're quite low key and calm, but each of them have compelling characteristics to them. Like, I see a lot of people make the comparison of Sister to the Common Linnets from 2014, and obviously that was very successful, finished second overall. I don't think this would have that kind of effect, but the fact that it is a very well performed, well harmonized, beautiful performance, that could actually, you know, help them, even again if it's just the juries. And then with Croatia, I think that the Taylor Swiftness, as she kind of admits, you know, having that comparison, I think that there is an audience for that, and I think that juries will also respect the type of songwriting, and even the way that they've chosen to tell it on stage. I think works overall. Maybe not perfect, but I think that it could happen.
I mean, I think with Croatia, I don't see the televoters kind of really gravitating towards this, so I feel like they're relying mostly on the juries.
Potentially, yeah. But let's move on to semifinal 2. So I'll read out the qualifiers for this one. So from top to bottom, we have Sweden, Poland, Estonia, Australia, Serbia, Finland, Czech Republic, Belgium, Cyprus, and Azerbaijan. And if you walk us through the supposed non-qualifiers.
So we have some questionable choices here. Malta, San Marino, Romania, Israel, Ireland, Georgia, Montenegro, and North Macedonia.
All right, so let's start back with the qualifiers
Yeah.
again and tell me what's your general impression of this? Do you think that this is mostly what we're going to get?
I'm going to say no. I'm kind of like 50-50 on this, because there's at least half of the countries that they think will qualify I agree with, and then the other half I'm like, I just don't see it happening. And it's because, like, you know, in semi-final one there was really only one song that I was thinking that's not going to qualify this semi-final. There's quite a lot that I'm on the fence with.
Yeah, I think that this one's a bit difficult
Yeah.
to call overall because, and even after seeing the rehearsals, we've seen some elevations, we've seen some letdowns, and it seems like everything has kind of been pushed in the middle where it really feels like things can go either way. But among the qualifiers, which one do you think is perhaps most in danger?
Out of the ones they've chosen, I would probably go with Estonia. I mean, Estonia, Finland, and the Czech Republic are the ones that I don't see qualifying personally.
Okay.
Belgium, I think, might struggle
Okay.
a little bit, but the others they've mentioned, I see them qualifying.
Yeah, with Estonia, it's so interesting because before watching the rehearsals, I had this as like a guaranteed qualifier.
Okay.
But I think that this might be one of the entries that is suffering the most because they've gone for this idea of a landscape.
Yeah.
And that doesn't quite work when you have the black hole sun.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's that, and also the fact that it's meant to be kind of bright and a sunny sky and all that. And without much else going on stage, I agree with you. I think that might unfortunately, you know, not be able to sell the song enough. He, of course, is like great when he's performed. I've become more and more confident in him, seeing like him on his own performing the song because his voice is incredible. But yeah, I'm worried that maybe the visual experience might not be enough for the audience. And the ones that you mentioned, apart from Czech Republic, I'm pretty sure that's going through.
Okay.
But you mentioned Belgium and Finland, right?
Yes.
Yes, those would also be two that I am a bit doubtful about. Finland, of course, you know, they have an audience. They're bringing a rock song, a very catchy rock song. But the fact that we see two other rock songs in here that are much more visually impactful and well performed is what makes me think that maybe they are in a bit of danger because we have not seen, I'm going to say, we have not seen a good vocal performance. We've seen pretty poor vocal performances from Finland.
And I think, I mean, although Jezebel is a good song, it's maybe not like a really standout song and a song that people are gonna remember, like Ziti Borne, for example. Like, it's not that kind of rock song in my opinion. And then I think with their running order, I think that could potentially harm them because they're opening the show and we have a lot of big performances coming after them that might make people kind of forget them in a way. But I think, you know, like you mentioned before, they have their audience. I feel like televoters would vote for this more than juries, and people that were or still are a fan of the Rasmus might throw a vote, and I think they would be mostly relying on this to get through.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about some of these alleged non-qualifiers. Which of these do you think has the best chance of qualifying?
Oh, only one again.
Yeah. Or you could say, like, you know, like I did, where if you're kind of between two,
Well,
just don't list them all, please.
but I want to.
To me, there is one obvious answer that I see here.
I mean, I guess the obvious one for me is San Marino.
Exactly.
But then my very close second is Malta.
And it's so interesting to see the flip with San Marino, because my whole thing before was that the larger audience is going to see this as Madison 2.0, but not only does it not look that much like that, visually it's very striking. It's one of the best, certainly one of the best rock performances that we have, but it's also, I think, just one of the best stagings, and even like the over-the-topness of it, it works for the kind of song that it is. And I remember watching it and being like, this is really, really, really tight, and I think that we can definitely count on San Marino.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, Achille Lauro has a good song, in my opinion, a good solid rock song. In my opinion, we don't need to listen to him over here. But also the staging, I think, is probably one of the best parts of this, just because it's so visually striking. There's so much to unpack from Achille and all of the props on stage. And I think especially televoters are going to be I think, quite wowed by this and are going to want to put it through.
Yeah, and remember when we were watching it, the first 2 takes out of the 3 that they do for the second rehearsals, and we were so impressed by it.
Yeah.
And then on the 3rd one, they incorporate the pyro because
Oh, yes.
it's expensive and they don't want to use it on every take. And we were kind of like, the pyro doesn't take away from it, but it also doesn't add much. Like, it's kind of fine the way it is. So it's like,
it kind of just feels like we have this big, powerful rock song.
Yeah.
Let's have pyro.
Yeah. So let's see how that goes, but we'll leave that there. Now, of course, we have to move on to the odds for winning.
Yeah.
Now, the narrative here hasn't really changed that much,
Yeah.
but let's kind of go in reverse order from the 10th most likely to win to the top. Number 10 is Serbia. Can you believe that?
I know. I mean, the power of Contractor.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine. I'd be over the moon if that were to happen. Number 9 is the Netherlands, kind of going against what we were saying about being a shocking on qualifier. Number 8, we have Norway.
For me, that's obvious.
The reasons for me that it's that high are obvious, but I don't think it's as realistic as it's reflected in the odds, if that makes sense.
I mean, I think with televote, yes, but with jury, no.
Number 7, we have Greece, one that's been pretty well received overall, I would say. Number 6, we have Poland, another one that has been mostly well received.
Yeah.
Certain criticisms about the staging might have something to say something about its likelihood to win. But then we have Chanel from España. Number 5, a lot of people actually are seeing this as a very likely winner. How do you feel about that?
I'm seeing this as a televote winner, but not an overall winner. So I can understand, and after watching the rehearsal, I see how it's so high in the odds.
Certainly. From day one, this has been very, very tight, very well executed. We did see some additions because the previous performances that we've seen, even off the Benidorm stage, have been more or less the same.
Yeah.
So, it made sense to, add in that little bit of extra musical elements and, the additional choreo and everything. Very possible. I have a slight doubt that it is actually going to win, but would be quite happy with it because then we've got Clara, and Clara will be going to Spain for next year's Eurovision, which is pretty exciting. Number 4 is Sweden, and this is actually a bit of a drop from before.
It is, yeah. Again, I mean, this to me is still a contender to win. I'm not surprised to see it in the top 5 of the odds. I did think it would be like 1st or 2nd, but 4th is still good.
Certainly, yeah. And I think that it is a bit unfortunate because there were a lot of technical issues with their second rehearsal, and they didn't even really get like a proper take. They did one, but it was still, there were lots of issues with the camera work, and even the 3rd one, which is supposed to be knock on wood, the one that is used in the event of an unfortunate circumstance. But I think that is probably played on people's minds as far as thinking like maybe this is not as likely to win as before. I still think that this is the best song that we have this year, and I think that if everything comes together on the night of, this could definitely be quite a big winner.
Oh yeah, for sure.
After that, we have number 3, Italy, Brividi, which is, I guess that is a drop. It's certainly a drop from before, but this was the least approved of rehearsal on the day that the Big 5 had their semi-final rehearsal. How do you feel about its likelihood to win?
It's a bit of a surprise seeing it in 3rd place in the odds, only because of the rehearsal that we've seen of them. Obviously it wasn't a terrible rehearsal, but I feel like vocal-wise, they weren't up to scratch as what we know they can be.
Certainly not, certainly.
And so after watching their rehearsal, I don't see them as a winner personally, but it would be nice to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, there's been a lot of things to say about this. One, it's the host entry, and we, for the most part in recent years, have seen some very low-performing, low-scoring host entries. Italy is supposed to be the exception to that because of the track record that Italy has, and that I can certainly see. If the vocals, for whatever reason, don't come together, then this may also face the same. Well, I think it could face the same reality if they're really that bad. I do think that we can expect much better than what we saw during the rehearsals. But I think I'm it's pretty safe to write this off personally as a potential winner. Not that I would be mad if it did happen, though,
Me
because
neither.
we're really enjoying our time here,
Yeah.
and we'd love to, let's say, go to Bologna next year or somewhere else that we're not
Yeah.
even thinking of. Number 2.
Well,
Can you
well.
believe it? Who is it?
The United Kingdom, the spaceman himself, Sam Ryder.
What do you make of that?
I mean, I'm constantly pinching myself to make sure that this is not a dream and that this is real. I mean, I think it's very well deserved, personally. We have a good song, well, I'd say a great song even, kind of modern radio-friendly pop song. We have a great singer, and we have actually nailed our staging, I would say. And I think taking all those things into consideration and what we've seen of Sam and his rehearsals, I think being second in the odds is a fair placing. All things considered.
I'm actually in a bit of disbelief in saying that I agree with that too. Not because of, I don't know, kind of superficial reasons, but I do think it is totally deserved. And that's, really, really commendable. I'm very happy to be liking the possibility of a UK win. What we saw, even that very first take, although not perfect with camera angles and certain things were revealed, there was something about the feeling that he put into it that made me think this is they're in it. They're actually in it. Like that. And when looking at the years before, this is like almost unthinkable.
Yeah.
So well done, UK. Let's see if that actually comes true. And then number 1, obviously not much of a surprise if you've been following what's been going on, but number 1 is Ukraine. Some optimism about this, a lot of kind of cynicism about this, unfortunately. But how do you feel about a potential Ukraine win?
I personally don't see Ukraine winning this year. They do have a very good song with a very good staging to match that I am convinced is going to finish somewhere in the top 10. But as for actually winning the whole contest, I think there are stronger songs that could appeal to both televote and jury that's going to win it. And I think, obviously, the question, if they do win, the question would obviously arise, was it a fair win or was it because of certain things going on?
Yeah, and it's a difficult thing to really address because this is an example of how Eurovision is not separate from the world, despite how people like to think of it that way. Like, everybody is a victim of the circumstances, and one thing that we've always said is important to remember is that this song was really liked before all this was happening, and if that hadn't been going on, then we couldn't have ever said that this wouldn't have won without the war in Ukraine going on. So hopefully if that does happen, people will be civil. I know obviously it's a big ask in 2022. But I would certainly welcome a win in Ukraine. I think Ukraine has just consistently put in so much effort. I know that there would be some questions about what the next year would look like, which is acceptable. I think to have those doubts, but I hope that people warmly welcome the idea of Kalush Orchestra winning Eurovision because it would be deserved in my mind.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, that's where the odds stand right now. Tomorrow we have our first semifinal, so things will obviously change.
Of course.
But let us know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with the odds, firstly, and do you agree with some of our thoughts on the odds? We've, of course, got lots more to come because we're going to be talking about specific qualifiers for each semifinal, and then we'll do another video just before the big show when we're talking once again about winners and what we've seen so far. But yes, we'd love to know what you have to say. Thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Eurovoxx because Eurovision is here and we're following it as close as we can.
Yeah.
And even after Eurovision, we still follow it.
Of
So
course.
we'd love to have you around to talk after the show about how things have gone, what you're looking forward to most for the next year. And I guess we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.